If you have a true strange story of the unexplained you'd like to hear read on the podcast, email it to madamestrangeways@gmail.com or go to madamestrangeways.com or just check the show notes for a link. I can't wait to read it. Welcome, strangers and strangelings and strange etc. to Madame Strangeways, where I, Madame Strangeways, narrate your true strange stories of the unexplained. And as always, solicited or not, usually not, I share my thoughts and observations after each spooky tale. Today, I've got one new true strange story for you all. But first, a strange salutations to my Patreon patrons, TJ Hodder, Gmanmusic, and Ted. Thank you so much to my unholy trinity for supporting the show. Do you want to hear your name at the beginning of every episode? Or how about a free sticker? Or exclusive behind-the-scenes content? For all that and much, much more, or maybe just more, maybe not all of the muches, join the Patreon at patreon.com/madamestrangeways or at madamestrangeways.com. And now, on to the strange story here on Madame Strangeways. The Lakehouse by Anonymous. For as long as I can remember, I've had issues with sleeping. I would cry and scream as a young child about not wanting to sleep, which sounds pretty typical to every other kid, so that didn't faze me too much. But as I got older, the nightmares and fear of sleeping got worse. In the 4th or so grade, I vividly remember 2 night terrors that left me sleeping 2 hours a night afterwards. Only once the sun came up around 5 a.m. was I able to get some rest. But that's not the point of this story. Eventually, I was diagnosed with a sleep disorder, but things got much better. I still had some nights where I'd have so much fear of sleeping that I'd lay in my bed covered in sweat and shaking, but for the most part, all was normal. I didn't have the night terrors or utter fear of falling asleep for a long time. A few years ago, I was in university doing my undergraduate degree in a beautiful city on a lake. I had decided to take a few summer courses. Given that it's mainly a resort town during those months, the rent everywhere was ridiculously high. Luckily, my second cousins offered me their summer home right on the lake for a few months while I completed my classes free of charge. I was beyond excited. The house was on the other side of the lake from the university and down a winding dirt road off the single-lane highway. I had 1 neighbor to my right and 3 to my left, but during the first few weeks of summer, most of them hadn't arrived for vacation yet. At the time, my boyfriend, now an ex, thank God, moved in with me because I was already uneasy about staying in a large house alone in a pretty isolated area. Looking back at my childhood, I think I was pretty in tune with my senses and maybe hyper-aware of, as my mother would say, things that go bump in the night. I always got an eerie feeling going into the basement alone because it was one of those walkouts that opens straight onto a porch and just a glass sliding door that separated the inside and outside. My first thought seeing that was, oh, great. This is the first house I'd pick to break into. Just some shitty humor that I used to try and alleviate my fears. It didn't work. The first few weeks were uneventful. Nothing odd happened at all. When I was home alone or up late studying after my boyfriend had already gone to bed, I increasingly started to feel more and more uncomfortable, like something was watching me. I was hearing doors shutting, footsteps, and random noises at all times of the day. But since I had such similar experiences as a kid, I didn't dwell on it too much. I mean, the house was older anyway. The night that shit really hit the fan was when the feeling of being watched turned into feeling like something terrible was going to happen to me. A very dark and threatening presence. Anyway, my boyfriend had already gone to bed, and I was studying in the living room around 10:30 p.m. The feeling became so overwhelming that I basically said nope and went straight to bed and locked the door behind me. I couldn't fall asleep for an hour. My heart was racing, and I felt like someone was in the house. It wasn't until I heard knocking on the front door that I decided to wake my boyfriend up, and in a hushed voice, I asked him if he had heard anything. He groggily woke up and said, "No, it's okay, just go back to sleep." So I sucked it up, threw my head under the covers, and tried my best to fall asleep. The next thing I know, my boyfriend is shaking me and whispering, "Wake up! What's the address to the house? I'm on the phone with the police and I need to know." Well, if that isn't a way to wake up, I don't know what is. So I quickly recited the address and whispered, "What's going on?" to my boyfriend while he stays on the phone with the police. They proceed to tell him that the police will be there in 25 minutes. The station is on the other side of the lake, but to call back if we hear anything else. Those 25 minutes were the longest 25 minutes of my life. I sat there shaking uncontrollably as my boyfriend began to tell me what happened. About 30 minutes after he dozed back off from me waking him up, he jolted out of his sleep to hear what sounded like 3 hard knocks on the garage door. He then heard a door open and heavy footsteps moved into the kitchen. That's when he decided to call. By no means was he an irrational person. Little noises and things that gave me the chills never bothered him too much. So when I found out he had called the cops, my blood ran cold. The police came and proceeded to move through the house and check every room, finding nothing. They said there weren't any signs of forced entry and suggested it could have been a bear. We both knew it was inaccurate, but at this point we were feeling pretty stupid and didn't say much. They left, and we were wide awake, lying in bed, both still feeling uneasy. That's when my boyfriend told me that it was the first time in his life that he thought there was no way to protect us. That really worried me because this guy made me feel very safe despite many poor qualities. He was 6'3" and pretty jacked. We didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day we were both pretty shook up, but he went to work and I went to school. When we both got home, he brought up the night before, saying he still doesn't think it was a bear. What kind of bear makes 3 distinct knocks and can open a door? We tried to rationalize the situation by saying maybe it was kids just screwing around. But we both knew it wasn't. The feeling in the house was still heavy and dark. I had been having nightmares for about a week of an older man, missing teeth, climbing up the stairs and smiling in a sinister way prior to the night before. That's why this next part pushed me to my breaking point, and I never slept in that house again. My boyfriend said that he kept picturing a man crawling, exorcist-like, with a smile when he awoke to the knocks. He felt that the man wanted to hurt us. I was shocked. His description, missing teeth and all, lined up with mine. As soon as I told him, he went white and told me that we needed to pack up an overnight bag and go to a friend's house. The next time we returned to the house, the feeling was there, but darker. We decided to move out instantly. The only time I returned was when my mom and grandma came to help me clean up the house before giving the keys back to my cousins. I never mentioned it to them. I searched online to see if there were any incidents within the area, but I couldn't come up with anything. I didn't bring it up to my cousins because I didn't want to come across as ungrateful for a place to stay. But even today, I can still picture that man smiling and remember the feeling of dread and overpowering worry that I was in danger. Okay, so new rule, no more lake houses. They're out. Not happening. A house on the lake? No, thank you. I think you mean a haunted house on a haunted lake. Okay, it's not happening. Anonymous, thank you so much for letting me share this story. Very scary. This story is actually 4 years old, and this is how dedicated I am to finding the most primo spooky content for you listeners. I went into the Reddit archives and I found a 4-year-old post, and man, it was so good. I was so relieved when Anonymous approved allowing me to read it. So thank you very much for that. So scary. Like you're a woman, you're living alone, it's summer. So, lots of slasher films happen in the summer. So maybe it's not Halloween, but like, come on, the scene is set, especially a lake house. Which one is it? Which of the slashers? Y'all are screaming at me. Mike Myers? I can't keep them straight. Who was the one at the Crystal Lake? See, I'm like on the peripheral. I am aware of these things that have happened. In a fictional universe. Well, whichever one is on the lake. Is that okay. Sorry, pause. Is the one on the lake Jason Voorhees? Which one's wearing the mask? That's the I'm losing so many points with so many people while I'm saying this. It doesn't matter. It's not the point. The point is, it was really scary. And you're living alone. You're a woman. You're living alone in this house. And there's not a lot of people around you. And then in this house in which you're staying alone, you are just hearing noises in the house, even at all times of the day. Doors shutting, footsteps, random sounds. You were feeling like someone was watching you. And I feel like this is youth. Like when you're young, you're in college, these things happen and you just put your fingers in your ears and go, la, 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 la. Like, just pay attention to what I'm doing. Just focus, put my blinders on and try to ignore it, right? Because I would hope that if this happened to you today, Anonymous, that you would be out of there. That's just so scary. I hate the feeling of feeling like someone's watching you. Ugh, that eerie feeling. But okay. This is all a preface to the thing that if you know me, if this is not your first episode, first of all, welcome. If it's your first episode, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. If it's not your first episode, you may or may not have clocked what I'm going to say, which is your boyfriend being like, oh, no, it's fine. Just go back to sleep. And going back to sleep when you're like, hey, wake up. Someone is knocking on the front door. Like there's a knock at the front door. And he's going to just say that. This 6'3" jacked man is going to tell you, just go back to sleep. Sir. No. I'm going to tell you what. My dad, not jacked, not 6'3". He would do the same thing. And I bet there's people that are listening that are thinking, yeah, my dad's the same way, or like my partner, whatever. Someone's, you know what? Get up. Get up. If you are a partner or a dad who is the one that's like, oh, just go back to sleep. You didn't hear anything. No, stop. Get up. Go check. Maybe it's a ghost, in which case maybe it's a murderous ghost. Okay. But A, that gives you the opportunity to die doing something heroic. So you're welcome. And number 2, maybe it's not a ghost. Maybe it's a human. Because that's one of my theories for this story, is that it's that really creepy situation called frogging, spelled Phrogging. And if you have not heard of frogging before, I'm so sorry for the nightmares that you're going to have, potentially. Hopefully not, but maybe. And I really am sorry, because you just can't unlearn. You can't unlearn it. So, it's like maybe it's a ghost, or you know what? Third case, it's a friendly ghost and nothing happens. And then you get to go back to sleep. But at least you're sure now you're not going to get murdered in your sleep by an axe murderer or by a scary old man ghost without any teeth who's going to gum you to death. You can see him coming if you're awake, with your eyes open. And not 30 minutes later, after this jacked 6'3" X decides that he doesn't want to get up. Oh, now it's an emergency. Okay. Wasn't an emergency, before, but now it is. Hint, spoiler alert, etc. It was an emergency then, and it is now as well. Because knocking at the front door is, I've said this in a previous episode, knocking at the front door in the middle of the night is genuinely something that, like, just the thought of it gives me goosebumps, and not in like a fun way. The thought of it, I don't like it. So if it was the middle of the night in a house where I've heard footsteps and doors closing and I feel like I'm being watched and I'm laying in bed and my heart is pounding and I feel like something bad is going to happen, and then there's 3 solid knocks on my front door and my boyfriend tells me to just go back to sleep. What a nightmare, like a waking nightmare. Anyway, it was emergency before, and now it's an actual emergency, and he actually calls the cops. I agree, that would be really scary. That like if someone who's like, whatever, just go back to sleep so I don't have to deal with it, actually calls the cops, that's a big deal. I can understand why you'd be scared. So obviously he heard, okay, let me get this straight. You heard the knocking at the front door. Ex-boyfriend heard the knocking at the garage door and then footsteps walking into the house. Now, luckily, you had said that you locked the bedroom door behind you because you were feeling like someone was watching you. So, girl, good job following your gut, listening to your gut. Always listen to your gut, guys. Did you hear this? I heard someone on TikTok say it, but then I actually did kind of lightly browse a study that said that, I don't know what the comparison is. I don't have it in front of me, but your brain has something like millions of neurons. Nope, your stomach. Of course, your brain has a lot of neurons. Wow, great. This is going really well. Your stomach has neurons in it, millions of neurons in your stomach. And neurons are things your brain uses, and they're in your stomach. So there's something to listening to your gut. There's something there. You know what? Fact checked me. Wow. Oh my God. Guys, I'm struggling. Okay. So appreciate you being patient with me while I struggle. Fact check me on this, please. So then not only does your 6'3" pretty jacked ex gaslight you to go back to sleep, but then when the police show up, they gaslight you too. Oh, it was probably a bear. Was it? I mean, why? What was the evidence that you had? What was the evidence that they had to say that it was a bear? I mean, I'm sure they wanted to just tell you, oh, it was probably fine, go back to sleep. How are you going to sleep after that? How are you going to sleep after that? Like, okay, first of all, though, if you call the police and you live in Canada, are you calling the Royal Canadian Mounted Police? Are they the Mounties? Is that who showed up? I genuinely don't know, but I really want it to have been the Mounties. So you're just, so like everyone that you're asking for help is like, oh, it's nothing, just go back to sleep. How are you supposed to do that? Because not only have you been having this recurring nightmare, which I will say you have established, Anon, you have established that you have a history of like a sleep disorder and night terrors. So, okay. But how do you explain that the ex-boyfriend has the same old man in his dream? And it happens on the same night as the knocking on the doors and him hearing footsteps? How? Like, he doesn't have a history of sleep disorders and night terrors, I would assume. That detail not having been included in the story. That is so eerie. So I mentioned, like maybe it's a Frogger, maybe it's someone, it's like a squatter, and they were living in the house before you showed up, and then you showed up and they didn't want to leave. And so they just kind of kept hiding and living alongside of you the whole time. And that's why you felt like you were being watched. I think if you were looking for a mundane explanation, I think that without knowing all the other details of the house and whether or not that seems possible, I feel like that sounds the most oh my God, I'm telling you, I'm struggling. That sounds the most plausible, but it's not the least scary. Like when I am offering plausible, mundane explanations for people's paranormal experiences and unexplained stories, when I'm trying to say, here's what I think it could be that's mundane, I am saying that to spare them more psychological trauma. I'm saying that to set their mind at ease. But to me, learning that it's not a ghost and learning that it was a human man living in my house alongside me and I didn't know he was there, to me, that's way scarier. So I don't love that. I think I would rather it be a ghost. So there's that. If it's not frogging, so knocking, as I've talked about in earlier episodes, knocking can be a few things. Like, for instance, it can be a harbinger of doom, or it can be a portent of death. Like if someone close to you died recently, you will hear knocking, and then you'll find out later someone had died right around the time that you heard the knocking. Since that detail wasn't included, I have to assume that wasn't a sign, but it's possible that somebody passed away after this story and you haven't put two and two together, so let me know. But it could be that. It could also be, apparently, a poltergeist. I just learned that poltergeists specifically not only make knocking noises or like doors opening or closing or cabinets opening and closing and just random sounds in general, but when they knock, it is associated with three knocks, poltergeist. I've been doing some research on my next deep dive episode, which is about one of the other Conjuring movies, or specifically the Ed and Lorraine case file. And I'm talking about poltergeists. And if you know anything about the Conjuring universe or Ed and Lorraine Warren, you may know what that next topic's going to be. And also, fun fact, did you know poltergeist is, yes, a German word, but okay, German listeners or anyone who speaks German, please correct me, but I have heard that when you are German and you are talking about a ghost or a poltergeist, you don't say poltergeist, you say Spuk, which so funny to me. Spuk. I don't know how you spell it. Probably an umlaut in there somewhere. Let me know. madamestrangeways@gmail.com. Let me know what you think. So it could be a poltergeist. I mean, the activity that you were experiencing, yeah, I mean, that kind of sounds like a poltergeist, but I don't think there's typically dreams or shared dreams. So then what is causing this shared dream? And then also, are we dealing with more than one entity, perhaps? Like, is the knocking a warning? Like, is there a benevolent entity in the home that senses this malevolent entity and they're warning you? Kind of like one of the other explanations for knocking. Sometimes when you hear knocking, especially when you're in mines or in towns near where there were mines, the knocking is from a knocker or a, knacker or a Tommy knocker, not like Stephen King, but they're basically these little subterranean gnome creatures who are knocking on the walls of mines to warn miners of an oncoming mine collapse so they can escape. Although, of course, some people think that they're tricksters and that they're actually causing the mine collapse. But I prefer the one where they're helping us. And then, okay, also here's some more lore. Those, like the knockers, the knockers who existed in mines, when the mines shut down, they didn't have anywhere to go. So they like went out into the communities near the mines, and then they would be knocking in people's homes as a warning of something bad about to happen. So, I don't know the exact area that this was happening, but, if it was near a mine, maybe that's one of the folklore explanations. They're warning you. So you've got this benevolent entity who is knocking to warn you of the evil entity who is entering your dreams as an old man doing the like exorcist upside down spider walk down the stairs. I don't know. I don't blame y'all for getting the hell out of there and for not spending another moment in that house. I also understand not telling your older cousins about it because I think you said in the comments that they had kids, so you don't want to spook them. Maybe they haven't experienced anything. Maybe y'all have like The Shining or something, and y'all were both just, really tuned in. I mean, we know you were. You said that your mom said that about you earlier, hearing things that go bump in the night. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there was like osmosis happening with your boyfriend and that's why he was able to have that dream. I don't know. It's terrifying though. And again, it makes me never, ever, 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 ever want to go to a lake house. Ever. So again, Anonymous, thank you so much for letting me share your terrifying story. I hope nothing like this ever happens to you ever again. And that also goes for anyone listening. Unless you do want to encounter something like this, in which case, yeah, sure, why not? Knock yourself out. If you have a story that you would like to hear read on the show, please go ahead, email that to madamestrangeways@gmail.com or check out my website at madamestrangeways.com. Thank you so much for listening to these spooky stories. Remember that you can feel afraid and not be in danger. So if you have a true strange story that you'd like to hear read on the show, go ahead and send it to me, madamestrangeways@gmail.com or madamestrangeways.com. And since word of mouth is so important for podcasts, if you could do me just one little weird, spooky, strange solid, that would be amazing. And that would be telling your friends about the show. I'd really appreciate it. Madame Strangeways is produced and narrated by me, Madame Strangeways. Theme music is by Marina Ryan at marinamakes.co. All stories are read with the explicit permission from their original authors. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.